Canada, what's going on? It's Parmesan here at Niagara Dude North, coming at you with my first video of the new year. Comment down below, what is your New Year's revolution? Resolution? What are you going to do this year? I'm going to elect a new leader. That's all.
This is station WX21, making a television broadcast direct from Niagara Falls. Are you ready, Niagara Falls? Let her go.
Hi guys, how's it going? It's Parmesan here. And last night, I watched a very compelling interview between Jordan Peterson and Pierre Poilievre. And Jordan Peterson really gets to the bones of, is Poilievre faking it? Is he compromised? Is he going to be compromised? So he really digs into his integrity and also his experience, right? So he one of the first questions he talks to Poilievre about, where's the proof that, is this you? Are we seeing an authentic Pierre Poilievre, or are you just an opportunist who's making just talking points and slogans to get a win, right? And I think he has a wicked response to that. And they have a couple of other really important things. Okay, other than that, go watch the interview because it's great. Anything Jordan Peterson does is awesome, and these two have a great respect for one another. And they really show it there at the end. Now, actually, I don't have a clip of it, so let me talk about it. At the end, Pierre really thanks Jordan Peterson for being such a warrior of free speech and going through all of the things that he has to go through, like the re-education, in order for us to have free speech. And I think that's important for us all to think, and we should all thank Jordan Peterson for that. He's kind of our Canadian hero, right, in this culture war. Let's get right into the first question. John.
A lot of distrust, generally speaking, in relationship to, I would say, establishment organizations and political elites all across the West. A lot of that well-earned. Why should Canadians believe that the vision that you just laid out is something that you hold personally dear and not merely what would you say, a set of carefully calculated campaign slogans?
Well, I look back at everything I've done for my entire political career to the time I was a teenager. Some people even dug up my old university essays, and I've been saying precisely the same thing the entire time. When I was 20, I wrote an essay as Prime Minister I would, and the title was Building Canada on Freedom. And the entire piece was about making the government small and maximizing personal freedom. So that's basically what I'm doing now.
So you have consistency
well, there were
going
things,
for you.
when I launched my leadership race, I literally had the same language in my leadership launch speech that I had put in that essay 22 or 23 years earlier. And when I was part of the Harper government, we basically fought for and did the same things then that I'm proposing to do now. So as much as you can be assured of anything any political leader says, I've got evidence to back it up.
Yeah, right? So that leads me to my next question. Was Pierre meant for this, or is he lying? Right? I think you probably can pull up his essay. Maybe that's something I should do. But that's cool. That's cool. So nothing special about Pierre. And he could run, he doesn't have to run on anything to win, right? But from what I notice, this is just a squeaky clean politician who's going back to normal governance. They actually kind of talk about this quite a bit. I didn't clip it for the video, but there was a conversation they had about, what is he gonna do when he comes in and how screwed Canada is, and he's just like, well, we were a great country 10 years ago. So I'm just going to go back to that. In a nutshell, he says there's a lot more to that, right? But he's like, I'm just going to go back to governing the way we were before Trudeau showed up, and that's it. It's funny because, like, we don't need anything other than to go back to normalcy, right? That's the real problem here. Moving on.
Okay, so one of the things that's been very distressing to observe, I would say, and I'm going to use the UK as an example. I mean, the UK had 14 straight years of Conservative government.
Yeah.
And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, thank God for that, because it could have been Labour. But having said that, they fell 100% prey to the blandishments of the net zero types and brought forward really a catastrophic energy policy. And
Yeah.
the UK is suffering dreadfully for that. And their immigration policy, I mean, Keir Starmer apologized for it, which was something remarkable to behold, and so did Kemi Badenoch, who now runs the Conservatives in the UK. Now, the reason I'm bringing them up as an example is because, well, they were a Conservative government, and they certainly didn't govern by anything approximating Conservative principles. And so how do you feel about the probability that if the Conservatives in Canada take power, that they'll be enticed into this global utopian delusion that seems to have enveloped so many leaders, kind of regardless of their political stripe? What do you think, if anything, can inoculate you or has inoculated you against that?
I know better.
Well, elaborate. What do you
Well,
mean?
I'm not going to do that. And it will be hard because the temptation will be, this is the mistake that conservative parties around the world have made countless times. They think, well, anybody who's got a conservative mindset is already voting for me, so I can go off and chase the
Right.
ideas of my political opponents, and then everyone will love me because I'll have the conservatives due to the fact that I have the name conservative. And then I'll have all these other people because I've embraced their contrary direction. And in the short term, it works because you manage to have all of these people under, and all of the different political ideologies captured in one tent. But the problem happens when the policies are a disaster. And then people wake up and go, oh my God, my taxes are now up, the inflation is out of control, the deficit is spiraling, there's crime on the streets. So does the temptation exist to try and take on the political policies of the socialists in the short term? Sure, but it's one that I will fiercely resist because I know that by the fourth year of my mandate, people would be enraged because their lives would be even worse.
See, I love that he went to the UK. 14 years of conservatism over there, and it didn't do nothing. You want to talk fucking uniparty? Jesus Christ, man. Yeah, the UK sucks. They've always have. There's no such thing as an opposition party over there. You just vote for change. It's like, I'm bored of you, I'm gonna go with you. It's kind of what we do over here. Unfortunately, Stephen Harper was actually in some deep shit. Now, do you believe Pierre? Do you believe it? I don't think that anybody that's this close to power just wants to throw it all away in 4 years. You know what I mean? We're definitely holding his feet to the fire. He better do it, right? Or else he's like, things are gonna get fucking nasty around here if this guy doesn't do what he's supposed to do. There's another part of the interview as well that I also didn't clip, where they talk about like the wokeness that has spread throughout all of Canada, and what will he do? There's progressives in the Senate, there's progressives in the judicial system, there's progressives in municipalities, there's progressives in NGOs, and he touches on him about what he's going to do about that. And I tell you what I would do about that, but he's just like, don't forget Like, we're going to have a lot of MPs down there, and they're going to be able to do all that stuff, right? In Canada, we can't forget that we don't vote for Pierre. We vote for our local people, and then Pierre is the prime out of all of those people, right? So it's not like it's going to be pure Pierre up here and a bunch of liberals down here. It's going to be conservatives everywhere. We're going to be a conservative country. Maybe even the most conservative on the whole planet.
Our quality of life and the things we can afford to provide our kids have fallen back so much.
Well,
There's
it's a
real
pretty
life.
stark and
Yeah.
easily comprehensible statistic.
Yeah.
I mean, if you work and you produce $80 worth of goods and services in an hour,
Yeah.
compared to working and producing 50, obviously that's a substantial shortfall.
Yeah.
So,
And what they're talking about right now is they're talking about production in Canada versus America and how much behind we are. And they touched base on the fact that in order for a Canadian to be as productive as an American, they need to get another job, a whole other job. Americans make that much more money than we do. They work half as hard as we do and get twice as much. That's what they're going to talk about right now, is how Americans work half as hard and get twice as much.
and is there a starker indicator of the economic disparity between the US and Canada than that? Or do you think that's the primary statistic?
I mean, I think housing costs
Yeah.
are another one. I
Right,
mean,
right.
There was a study out just 10 days ago that has Toronto and Vancouver now by far the most unaffordable housing markets in North America. And so, housing costs are 50% higher in Toronto than they are in Chicago, even though Chicago workers make 50% more money. The same is true between Vancouver and Seattle. Seattle workers make way more than Vancouver workers, but housing is 60 or 70% more expensive in Vancouver. So on
Right. So
all
we're
the
making
measures,
less by a lot.
yes,
By a lot.
by a lot.
Yeah.
And
like
we're
40%,
paying
we're
more.
paying more by a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And most of that's transpired in the last 10 years.
Yes, and we're paying the difference by accumulating.
This isn't something that, like, this is not news. Like, we're all fucked, right? This is not news. But I mean, to put it in perspective like that, right? How far away is Seattle from Vancouver? It's a couple hundred miles, right? And if you look at the states, if you look at the poorer states in the United States, everything is proportionate, right? Some people make less money in West Virginia than people do in New York, but West Virginia is also much cheaper than New York.
Enormous quantities of debt. Our households are by far the most indebted in the G7. When you divide total household debt by GDP, we now have a bigger stock of household debt than our entire economy. We are more indebted as households than the Americans were right before the 2008 financial crisis. And so what we have as a model in Canada is we have artificial scarcity imposed by a very heavy and restrictive state, confiscatory state. So that suppresses production.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to allow for consumption, we print money and borrow money and then flood the economy with that money.
Okay, so that's another problem. So that's the inflationary problem.
Yes.
Now, the problem with inflation, there's many problems with inflation, but one of them is that it particularly punishes people who are thrifty and who save.
Yes.
Right, right. So inflation punishes the people who forego gratification to invest in the future.
That's right.
Right, so that's a very bad idea.
It's a horrible. Inflation is the single.
Which is me. I'm that kind of person. I'm 36 and I've spent almost my entire adult life not fucking buying anything and planning for the future. And over the last few years, just completely blew through everything.
Single most immoral tax for so many reasons. One, it takes from savers and people who are trying to be responsible, thus making it impossible to be responsible.
Right.
Because you will, if you refuse to play the inflation game of borrowing money to buy things you can't afford, someone else inevitably will, and you won't be able to afford anything.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So you ultimately have to act responsibly. It's like Milton Friedman was asked, what would you do with your money in times of inflation? He said, spend it.
Right, right.
Like the first thing you want to do when inflation is out of control is to make sure you get rid of this thing that's losing its value.
As a father, as a head of a family, during times of inflation, of really nasty inflation, the most valuable thing that you can own is food. That is the most valuable thing that you could own. The people who are thriving right now are the couponers. Dead serious. Dead serious. The people who are using all of the stuff that they bought last year right now, those are the winners. Okay? Because inflation, with inflation going up so fucking insane every single year. Every year. And it never stops. The best thing that you can do is use stuff you bought last year because it's cheaper. And even though you bought stuff this year that's more expensive but still on sale, your prices stay below the normal sale of that product. If you're Canadian, start buying food. Food is the most important thing. Especially if you go back and you watch my 5 predictions for 2025. Got something in there for you. Food is by far the most valuable asset in Canada right now.
Second reason it's immoral is it takes from the poor, because the poorest people they do not have the ability to buy inflation-proof assets like gold and real estate and fancy watches and art collections and fancy wines and things that go up with or even exceed inflation. So it's a very big wealth transfer from the poor and the working class to the very, very wealthy. A very small group of people actually get richer.
So the socialist policies that provide goods and services to Canadians, let's say, or denizens of other countries, by printing money, actually punish the poor brutally.
Oh, absolutely.
In consequence of the inflation that they generate.
Yes. I mean, all the socialist policies in practice redistribute from the working class to the super wealthy in practice. Mm-hmm. And I can prove that again and again.
You see, the problem that the left has in Canada and America is they want all these things that Europe has because Europe is so damn great in every way. But what they don't understand is that Europe was ravaged by war. It's really easy for Germany to build up a socialist economy when their country got obliterated by 2 world wars in under 50 years, right? It's very easy to do that. So what you need to do is what's going on now. You need to bring world war economies to our countries, to North America, in order to burn everything down and build anew. And from the ashes, we build anew. Karl Marx.
Again and again. In practice.
Yeah.
In practice, all the redistribution that happens in these so-called socialist countries ultimately goes from the working class to the super wealthy. That is the reality. But just one last thing on inflation. The final reason why it's so immoral is nobody votes on it. The basic principle of our parliamentary system is the government can't tax what Parliament has not voted. The people no taxation without representation, right? But no one ever votes to have the money printing happen. And so the inflation is adopted secretly, and you blame the grocer because groceries are more expensive, or your local gas station because gas is more, or your realtor because when in fact it was actually the government that bid up all of those things with money printing, and you didn't even know about it. Mm-hmm. So it is silent. It's a silent thief that takes from the poor and gives to the richest people, and it destroys the working class. And that's why I want to crush inflation. We need a policy that seeks to stop inflation at all costs.
Great. Right. Great points. Okay. And this is why I go for this guy. Okay, fuck the PPC. Okay? Yeah, I get it. I know what conservatives are up to. I know what Stephen Harper was up to. I still like Stephen Harper. You can 100% agree with everybody. I don't 100% agree with Pierre. But this dude is freaking jit. Okay? He was... Under Harper, he was the housing minister. And he was also I don't think he was a finance minister. He was a minister of like economics or something like that. Not the finance minister. Things change a lot. So he like did the money for the Stephen Harper government, and he did the houses for the Stephen Harper government. This guy I know will do his stuff. And he just looks like a government nerd. Okay? I've been watching him for a long time. Back when Andrew Scheer was the leader, he just looks like a government nerd who has finally just pissed off. You know what I mean? I think that to me, those are the vibes Pierre gives me. Do you agree? Do you agree? You can never really tell when someone's just an opportunist looking to get a buck and try to, and you know, be evil, right? So we just gotta take the cards where they are, look at them. A spade's a spade. If a year from now the spade turns into a club, that sucks, and we gotta hold him responsible to that. I just want a house, man. Just want a house. But those were, I think, the most important things they talked about. Okay? It's nice to know that he's going to try to go to 0% inflation. That's crazy. And it'll be really easy for him to do because of how humongous our government is. Think about it, if he cuts the government in half, then that's that much money from that much. That's that much money that he gets to go and spend on other places without raising inflation. Right? So, Pierre, please, man, you can't come fast enough. Please, guys, if you watched this video this far in, if you got any value from it, like, comment, and subscribe down below. I'm just a normal guy trying to make it on YouTube talking about Canadian politics. I'll see you guys tomorrow. This is Parmesan, Niagara due north.
Finally done.